college application process can seem daunting and time-consuming, but it doesn't have to be. Career coach Kristen Heemstra is here to help simplify things. So, Kristen, you first said we need to determine where the student's going to apply.
You know, absolutely, Valanda, because when you start the college application process, if you don't know where you're going, the train can very easily go off track. So you want to have a destination in mind, and that's why you should determine where you want to start first. And that will then tell you the deadlines that you need to hit based on where those schools' deadlines hit in the calendar year.
As a parent, should you give your child a limit of how many schools?
Oh, that is such a great question. And there are so many different answers. And the question is, how much money do you want to spend on college applications?
Oh, okay.
Because they run roughly $80 a pop.
Yikes.
Yeah, they're quite expensive for most schools to apply to. And you don't necessarily need to have that many. We recommend you do a safety school, a match school, and a reach school. So you know you're going to get into at least one.
Okay. It's also important to determine if the student will take the ACT or the SAT again before applying.
Absolutely, because the ACT and SAT, they give tests in October and November. And even if you're applying in October, you can still use the October deadline or the October test for your application. You just need to let the college know ahead of time that it's coming, because otherwise they'll read your application without having that score in there.
Ooh, okay.
You don't want that to happen.
You suggest we write down on both a good wall calendar and reminders on an electronic calendar.
Absolutely. This is a time to give up vanity around your house and just pack those things right on up there so that everybody knows it's college application time. So when the student comes in, they see it, and so that you see it too as a parent. So you can gently, lovingly remind them of when those deadlines are coming up.
Okay, what do you mean by backfill to the application deadline for the essay?
Okay, so essays are the vehicle in which the student can really stand apart from everybody else. It's how they define themselves. And so let me tell you how this process really goes.
Okay.
There's a fantasy thing where you write the essay and it's beautiful, and then you write a draft and it's even more beautiful. And then there's the final draft, and rainbows come out, birds sing, and it's like so exciting, and people clap. And then there's the reality of what happens, which is you have this great concept and you can't translate it onto paper. Like in your mind it's great, but when it comes down to paper it's just not. And so what you want to do is give yourself enough time and space to have that essay, and then to let it go. And let yourself take on the next essay that comes through, because that's often how it works. You think of this great thing, it doesn't work out, and then the next essay that comes through is just fantastic. So I recommend 3 to 4 weeks.
Gotcha. All right. Also apply a few days before the deadline.
Yes. Okay. So October 15th just happens to be a deadline for UNC and North Carolina State. And at 12 o'clock midnight, those systems have been known to crash because everybody in the state is hitting the send button. So you don't want that to happen to you.
Yeah.
So a couple days ahead of time, if you have a plan, it shouldn't be an issue whatsoever. A couple days ahead of time, you can apply, which means that your application will be safe. It will get there. It won't be lost in cyberspace. And you should get a receipt from the college saying they have received your application. If you don't get a receipt, it hasn't been received.
Okay. It's also important, finally, to keep an eye on the family stress level.
It is, because stress is actually optional. I know that sounds weird.
What?
I know it is. You want a little bit of stress, but there's some families that will just take this to an extreme it doesn't need to go to.
Okay.
And they'll induce stress themselves. Millions of kids are going to college. Millions of kids are going through this process. So keep that in mind, and your child will be just fine. And so keep telling yourself that, rather than, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And also keep that tone with your child, because they're stressed out. Seniors are taking very intensive classes, and this is one more thing on top of them. So as a family unit, just really keeping an eye on how stressed the unit becomes. It's very important in this time.
Kristen, this is incredibly great advice. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
We'll be right back after the break.